Hi, creators. Today we have a very nice talk with Elana Wohrstein. I hope I didn't mess up her last name, but it was a wonderful chat. Elana is a full-time global project manager, mother of twins, married and live in a multi-generation home, often anxious or distracted, who is also an artist, making art journals, scrapbooks, and generally documenting all the things in all the ways, just to stay sanish, as she says. We had a wonderful talk. At the end, Elana wanted me to emphasize that all that she does is for full pleasure and she has a full-time job. And I always say to her that, she is an artist, despite what you work or not, and you do this for money or not. If you create something, you are an artist. So it was a wonderful talk, and I hope you enjoyed. There's so many good nuggets of wisdom in this talk. I encourage you to go to the blog post of this podcast that I'm gonna put some of her work and some pages that we talked about in the conversation, and also you can follow her on Instagram. I hope you enjoy it, and I see you next time.
Welcome to the Artistically You podcast, where mixed media art is a place for all. Here, we are going to talk about art as a mindful practice, connect with our creativity, and embrace curiosity. This is your host, mixed media artist, Jana Oliveira.
Hi, Elana. Thanks so much for being in the podcast. I'm so glad you're here. We can talk a little bit more about all things story related. And how are you today?
I'm good. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. And when I invited you, you were like, I'm not an artist. Why are you inviting me? But I want to say to listeners is that my podcast I view as art. Everything is art. If you are making with your hands, if you are, getting the joy and the feeling of satisfaction, to me, everything counts. It doesn't matter to me if you doodle with a pencil, if you paint with acrylics. And to me, as a former scrapbook and story recorder, I still actually do travel notebooks. To me, everything counts, and that's what I want the listeners to be open and learn more about that and see that everything counts. Everything is art. So, but tell to the listeners, how do you see yourself in terms of a crafter, story maker?
I was thinking about this. I thought this question might come up. I wasn't sure, but it's funny. I've gone through periods of my life where I didn't realize this counted or that counted, and periods of my life where I do whatever the heck I want and call it art. I actually do art journaling, assemblage, all kinds of documenting, including scrapbooking, and then crochet, drawing, photography, writing. It took a lot of years before I brought a lot of that together.
Mm-hmm.
So they were all separate pursuits.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of different things that I do. And there was a point where I came to realize it all counts. And
yes, absolutely.
So I forget that from time to time. I would say there were at least 2 points where I came to realize that. And so here I am again, relearning.
Do you think you spend more time, or is that equally? Do you think you spend more time doing scrapbooking related things or art journal things?
I tend to go in waves. I do a ton of scrapbooking all the time, but for me, that's mostly the taking the pictures, printing the pictures, and writing things down, sticking a few stickers here and there. When I do big 12 by 12s, which I had not done in a long time and just started doing again, I have not spent a lot of time doing that. It is a lot of art journaling, and then there's a certain amount of crafting that goes on. I mean, part of that is having elementary school age children, but another part is I really do like throw some glue, throw some paint, throw some beads at it and see what.
So how long have you been scrapbooking?
I've been scrapbooking since 1999.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So one of the OG people, except interestingly enough, I didn't know there was a community. I didn't know there were magazines.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't know there was anything. I just got this like kit in the mail for a few years before I discovered like the whole world of scrapbooking and
Mm-hmm.
archivers and all of that. So I was just using plain cardstock and a few printed pattern papers and
Did you ever
pens.
try card making?
I used to make cards all the time, but you know how people are like card makers now with a capital C, capital M. I made my Christmas cards. I made 100
Right.
of them.
Mm-hmm.
But so,
Yeah.
like
Can
I
I
made
ask?
cards because cards were expensive and I had
Right.
all this stuff at home.
Mm-hmm. And I asked that because I started as a card maker actually, and I discovered this whole sub world of card making. And I have to tell you, I have found memories because at that time I had a blogspot blog, and we had a community. I had friends. We would exchange cards, and all through blogging. Like, we didn't have Instagram, we didn't have Facebook. It was like
I was thinking about
billion
that
years
too.
ago. I don't even remember. And I have such a fond memory because we have all the same ladies. Sometimes we know, and then we would send cards to each other, and then we would comment on each other's blogs. So we had a sense that we knew these people. And actually, by the way, I'm just rearranging some things in my house because we're gonna move, and I found this box full of these cards that this lady sent me,
Aw.
and some of them still follow me today. But it's like, it was such a nice time and such a nice community, and also
Absolutely.
shows that, of course, social media made it easy, but we had community back then.
I was
And
thinking about that. When I first really started to bring my art and my therapy and my writing and everything to bear all in one place was when I took this class from a place called Studio Arts Dallas, and my friend, Barley Vogels, she ran a class that was basically, we were going to do Julia Cameron's Artist Way, which brings in
wow,
all your baggage, and you
yes,
unpack it and you make art out of it,
that
basically.
book is deep.
The book is very deep, and she co-taught it with a therapist, which was very helpful. And I was thinking about how that was a big turning point for me, and that was 2001. But that in that community, we were so close knit. But yes, we were all Dallasites. In fact, we were all East Dallasites pretty much.
Yeah.
And we all, and it seemed so local and so finite, because this is like way before Facebook for me. I don't know about everybody else. I don't know the history of it.
Yeah.
But it was before Instagram. And yeah, I think blogs were starting to be a thing, but none of us had a blog and none of us were in magazines. And we were traveling each Wednesday night to a place. And, it was so important to realize there's like a lot of people out there. But that community, once I moved eventually, I wasn't as in touch with them. And it's only through Facebook that I can keep in touch with them now,
With
some
people,
of them. And so in 2012, I went to Create. I don't know if listeners remember Cloth, Paper, Scissors magazine, which is now gone, sadly. They did this.
Rest in peace.
Yeah. They did this big art retreat, and it was very expensive. So this was just before I had children.
I think I remember that.
I went for like 4 days or something.
Wow.
And I got to meet in person, Julie Fafen Balzer and a whole bunch of Cloth, Paper, Scissors regular contributors, and take classes from them. But by then, by 2012, 10 years later, the internet and Facebook and everything was a thing. And it just like opened my world to, I can stay in touch with these people. I can follow them on Facebook and Instagram, and they have blogs where they teach classes. And it was really, that was the second time I realized that just because I was mostly doing things by myself and I was mostly, bringing all my personal, intimate stuff into my art and learning from books, that it all counted. It all
Mm-hmm.
counted. It all meant something.
Mm-hmm.
So
And it was on this time or after that, or at the same time that you discovered also art journal?
So I discovered art journaling before Create,
Oh,
because that's like when I started buying Cloth Paper Scissors magazine and so forth.
yes.
The therapist that helped that team taught that class, she had
Mm-hmm.
done, back then everybody was doing altered books.
Right.
Now we kind of call it alt journaling. It all the same.
Yeah.
And I had tried, and then I couldn't come up with a reason. And I was like, well, why do I make collage? Because I was making a lot of collages at the time. And I was like, well, every time I make a collage, I have a reason. I'm trying to demonstrate a theme. It could be as deep as trying to process death, or as light as trying to process why I like makeup, especially ads for makeup. Sometimes I like the ads for makeup more than the makeup because I just love color so much. But anyway, so after I got married, we were trying to get pregnant, and our trying to conceive journey was long. And all of a sudden, I had my theme for my first art journal. I was going to process our trying to conceive journey in
Oh,
an art
amazing.
journal.
Amazing.
And that was my first one.
It's just amazing that it shows the power of art journaling, that you saw that, okay, I have this thing that is going on. And it's so, for many women, that journey is so hard. I myself, it took 8 months for me to get pregnant, and I was starting to feel like what's going on. And then that's when we finally got pregnant. But
It
it's,
took us almost 3 years.
yeah. And to me, I don't know what you think, but to me, it's like I never was a person that I would love to be, but it's hard for me to sit in this journal about, like the book we're talking about, The Artist's Way. She says that one of the things is the morning pages, that you wake up and you do that streaming of writing. It's hard for me. That doesn't work. And our journal, for me, when I discovered it, it was a way that, I can have like a main point, a word that I can concentrate on my feelings. But sometimes you don't even need a word. You just you can put your feelings there and just put paint on top of it, or collage, and you work that stuff. And when I discovered that, was like a whole world open to me.
Right.
Because it's, for the listeners, if you're not familiar with our journal, and on the show notes, I can talk a little bit more, explaining more, but I think it's so many things. And to me, is a clear example of art with deep emotion. Because I see some works, some people do some art journal nowadays that is not so related to emotional things, that are basically, if we see, it's an abstract art.
Right.
So it's a mixed media art. So people sometimes can get intimidated. Oh, I can just art journal if I have a deep feeling. Or no, sometimes you see a quote that you like. I mean, we did a project, right, with quotes. You see quotes that you like and you want to do something with it.
When I first started, not every day was a day in the journey, right? It's a monthly thing. So there's lots of pages in there where I have just illustrated quotes, or talked about a trip to Red Lobster where, like, I was engaged by all my senses, especially the sense of smell, but just it turned into a way of processing, and it turned into a way of creating art, and it turned into helping me. I need color.
Yes.
And I went through a period where I felt like I couldn't make any art, and I became obsessed with those games where you match 3 colors. And it could be anything. It could be cookies, it could be candy, it could be whatever. And I had a lot of those different games happening, and I started art journaling, and I even art journaled about my obsession with balloon pop in my first art journal. but it really helped with getting me into making something that I could feel like was helping me, instead of, I feel like those games are just a straight up plain waste of time. Even if they were helping me cope in the moment, they didn't have lasting coping. Whereas something about the art journals just really do. And I can look at them, and I can look at that piece about balloon pop, where I punched 4 zillion little balloons with one of those old time, I still got all my old scrapbooking stuff. I have a balloon punch that's about half an inch tall, and I created a balloon pop spread.
It's just,
it was just important.
Do you think it helps you to process the feelings that whatever you were going through at the time that you were creating?
Absolutely. Because my next art journal, I didn't create, and I've made it really big. I didn't really know how long it would take to fill an art journal. I naively made this huge one, and took 3 years to fill. But the next one I made in 2017, which was a super, super tough year for me emotionally. And that one is dark. Like, that first one was pink. That next one is black and red. And there's a lot of dark stuff in there. And I was processing and processing. This was not art for escape. This was face all those raw emotions kind of art. And it helped immensely. But I did find that art was so helpful. But at that point, being the mother of 2 3-year-olds, I didn't want to dwell in that dark place all the time, that I started a drawing practice with one of those like 642 things to draw book.
Yeah.
So I used pencil and line drawing only. And yes, all the drawings are cartoonish and they don't have any color, strangely, but it was still therapeutic for my brain to work out. They say this word, bucket. What kind of bucket am I going to draw? What kind of bucket can I draw? What does a bucket look like for real? And I did all 642 drawings.
Oh, wow.
In a 1-year span. And, I used to use my 3-year-old to be like, do you know what this is? And if it was in their realm of knowledge and they knew what it was, I felt like success. If a 3-year-old can tell that is a bucket, I'm good.
Did you feel on that one that had that raw emotion and dark, do you feel that really helped you to get out of that dark moment?
I think it was a big piece of it. Honestly, I do. And when I look at it today, I see the variety of things, because I don't create in chronological order. I just open the book wherever.
Yeah, me too.
And do whatever. And I see the variety of things in here, the variety of color, and I know which ones were made when without even checking the date.
Yeah.
And the funny thing for me, and this is a picture of my brain, right? January 2018 was like this artistic explosion for me. I started bullet journaling, and I started doing all these documentation projects and like heavy photography stuff, and the art journaling, and I was still drawing all those little pictures every day. And I do credit art journaling with that. And I credit that with starting me to get out of that place. And
the thing is that it's, don't you agree also that what I love about art journal is that you don't need to have expensive stuff.
I started with
there are journals, right? There are journals out there that they say that are for art journal. We know that. A good one that I use is the Diane Rivley Mixed Media Journal.
Yeah, I like that one too.
But I do a lot of art journal pages that I post on my Instagram on my 99-cent, notebook.
Yeah, this was made. My first one was made with all kinds of paper that I just had lying around.
I think my next phase would be, because we all have a bunch of papers and a bunch of painted papers. I have actually two journals that I did myself with this kind of papers, and I think my next one, when I finish this one, is going to be a handmade art journal page, that I handmade. Do you, comparing now all these emotional things with the art journal, do you see your scrapbooking give you some kind of release, or do you think, no, this is just, maybe found memories, or, oh, so glad that we did that, and it brings a different feeling for you?
I was, no, because I literally scrapbook everything. The grossest to the saddest to the happiest to the most surreal things that happen in my life.
Oh, wow.
The other night I had a horrible experience. My cat found a mouse and she injured it, and I had to perform a mercy killing. And you know what? I scrapbooked it.
Yep.
And it was slightly traumatic for all of us. My children, my cat was pissed even. My mom gave me a big hug after I dealt with it, it was horrible. Poor mouse. But I talk about it all because I don't know any other way to be. The bigger my life gets, the more it's hard to hold all the memories.
Yes. And I was actually going to say that is that now my memories are a little bit different because my son is older. My son is 12. But I'm so glad I was such a prolific scrapbooker when he was young, because I know, like, looking back, we remember special moments or things, but we don't remember the every day that we spend with our children. Like,
No.
sometimes I'm like, I look at pictures that appear on my Google thing on my kitchen, and I'm like, wow, I don't remember we used to do that. And it's like, how was like it? And to me, I think also my brain preserves me, because when my son was younger, was young, between like 8 months and 3, it was so hard for him because of his autism, and he knew so little, and he was so lost, and things were very difficult. He was very tiring for me because he behaved totally different, and he could not even understand his name when we called him. And he had issues to eat, and he had serious issues for eating. And I think my brain was like, I don't want you to remember all that stuff.
Right.
But I'm glad that I recorded a lot of stories of feeling sad sometimes that a kid would say something very rude to my son on a playground.
Right.
And things like that. But I recorded that because at the end for him, because I always wrote for him, I talked to him about the other side, that it is a gift. He's special. And just people don't understand that. And it is, he's here to educate people. So it's a tremendous power that we have. And I think people just miss scrapbooking a little bit. But if we think about it, there's so much power in telling your stories. It's your life.
I was on the other side. I was the one with the neuroatypical brain, and I'd been diagnosed with ADD a long time ago, but no one had ever diagnosed my general anxiety disorder. And so the first 3 years of my children's life, I was in a state of semi-panic. And 2017, when they turned 3, was when the rubber hit the road, so to speak. And eventually I got diagnosed, and I am so happy to be treating my anxiety. And but I'm glad I have stories, because my brain wasn't in the right place, and there's no way I could have remembered all of that.
Yeah.
And I was a first-time mom, and everyone figured I I don't know. I feel like people thought I wouldn't be as woohoo because I was an older mom, but
Yep. Yeah,
yes,
me too. I have my
yes
son older.
again. So scrapbooking, yeah, like the buttons and the bobs and the rhinestones, those feed my little person inside who loves color. But the
Mm-hmm.
stories are what is like so vital.
Mm-hmm.
I need the memories. I need the viewpoint. I need the perspective. I mean, sometimes I look back and think, oh my God, 2017 just really
Yeah.
sucked. That's the year my mom had to get her heart valve replaced after having replaced it 23 years before. And
Wow.
so facing mortality, she was facing her mortality. I was facing
Yeah.
her mortality. I was somehow facing my own. And, there was just, and even a lot more stuff than that was happening that year.
And I think in a way, scrapbooking introduced me to art journal because I always felt that I liked my pages to be more artsy. I never liked them very graphic. I always like to put some spray, put gesso, things that back then were not very common.
Yeah, well, I never.
Nowadays, you have like Vicky Butin that does all that kind of stuff in scrapbooking. It's,
Vegan,
you have
yeah.
package. One day I was at Michael's and I saw a paper pack that was alcohol winks, right? And at that time, you didn't have that. It was just like pattern, graphic, that kind of stuff. And I always felt like,
Yeah.
I like more artistic stuff. And that's how actually I got introduced and started loving mini albums.
Mini
And I
album.
started
Really
doing
let your
them.
creativity go. There was no rule.
I started to create them and think about new ways of mini albums. I actually did classes when that time there was barely classes about it. I had a class at Ning that I don't even know if I think still exists. And I would do live streams with Ustreamer. That time there's no YouTube.
Wow, you were really on the cusp of that technology.
Yeah, at that
I had
time there was no YouTube live of
no
stuff, no Facebook live, and I did on Ustream that today is a site that is more for corporate. They stopped this thing of regular people streaming, but and it was so much fun, and to have people joining and doing mini albums, and I did that for quite a while. But then I think it was that in that time that I discovered Art Journal. And like you, I actually just recently, I think 3 months ago, I was diagnosed with, generalized anxiety. But something started shifting for me when I got pregnant. I started having my general anxiety. It's more on obsessive behavior in terms of thoughts and bad thoughts, not so much as depression. So I started to feel that anxiety and afraid for my husband, afraid for like my son, afraid for my health. And I saw playing with paints and stencils and things like that a way to give my brain a break, because sometimes my brain was killing me. It was just
Yes,
so like,
absolutely.
then I discovered that, okay, if my brain gives a break while I'm creating, while I'm painting, like today, I see that it's
Right.
almost like a meditation. Because isn't that what they say, that we should do meditation to keep our brain quiet?
Yeah,
And,
they
you
do
know,
say that. And I try, but my brain
and
with the ADD doesn't shut off as well. I don't know if anybody's brain shuts off easily. I've never been inside anyone
yeah,
else's brain, but the
but
ADD
I
super
found when I'm painting or doing art journal,
yeah.
I just forget about it. I'm just
Oh,
concentrate on what I'm creating. And that gives me that, okay, sometimes I go because I feel anxious about something, and then, okay, I need to create something. Then I start a painting or I start a art journal, and I feel another person when I finish that.
yeah.
And I think, I don't know, I never got diagnosed, but I think I have some attention disorder, and I don't know if it's because my anxiety, but I can never just work on one thing. I have to start something, then go to
Connected.
another one, then go to another one. I
Yeah.
have many things drying in my studio at a certain point, all them unfinished.
Yeah.
Because my brain can't stand for me to work just one piece to the end. I get exhausted.
I
Even
would
though it's a
say
good feeling, but I feel exhausted.
when we did our project together, which we haven't mentioned yet, but we did a partner project with art journaling, and we gave
Yes.
ourselves the recipe of having texture, having a quote,
Mm-hmm.
having paint, having hand-drawn lines or doodling, and one more thing, I have it written down in the middle of this book, collage and
Yes.
stencil, doodle, and texture. So not paint, though I think we both use paint every time too. But something about that helped my ADD, because I was like, oh, but I need to do this part of it. Oh, well, I need to do this part of it. And it
Mm-hmm.
helped me create a layered piece that I had never been able to do before, because I would get sick of something before I went to the next layer and I couldn't think of another layer. And so when we did that together, that really changed my thinking about what art journaling, like how far I could go with it. I
Mm-hmm.
hadn't even realized I was putting limits on myself, to be honest.
Interesting.
And
I think it's like in our case, and I think that's many people do that in art journal, which is nice. Like you can do collaborations with other people when we exchange the materials and stuff. And it's always like it pushes your brain, right? When you're working with another person gave you, because the person has another style. And I think it pushes our brain. Like um, I, I am now doing a class about composition, like a high level class. And sometimes when they give the homework, I'm like, I can't, I'm overwhelmed.
oh no.
Like my anxiety and my ego says to me, no, this is like too much. You can't handle this. This is against what you're used to do.
Right.
But at the same time,
Brains.
I know that I need to push myself out of my comfort zone. Otherwise, I'm not going to grow. And I'm in this class to grow. And I knew it was going to be uncomfortable because it is in the description. This class is
Oh no,
hard.
this is an uncomfortable
This
class.
class is going to kick your butt. So if you are not up to it, don't sign up. And I
Wow.
signed up.
And you signed up. Look at you. So brave.
So, and I had moments that I cry of happiness, I cry of like frustration.
Yeah.
But it reminds me of our project because it's a group of 10 people. And, you know, we have aha moments together. We have frustration together. It's so amazing. The experience has been so amazing to see other people's process and frustrations.
And how they.
Because sometimes you think, oh, this is just me. I'm just. And then you see that sometimes someone has the same frustration that I had.
Right.
Because when we discuss, for example, values and hues of color, and I have this issue with acrylic paint that is so hard for me to get the hues that I want. And I see other person say, well, I also tried this hues here and I was struggling because my medium is watercolor and blah, blah, blah. So we help each other with our frustrations, but also sometimes when it has a homework that I think, I don't know what I'm going to do. I have no idea. And we have a Slack channel and then they start posting ideas or thoughts. And I'm like, oh, you gave me an idea. I can maybe do that. So it's like we help each other, not even knowing that we help each other. And sometimes we discuss things like we're frustrated and we discuss things and one of them was saying, wow, it's so amazing that we have the space here, the Slack channel that we feel that is very intimate. Like our classes are not recorded because we say things that are very intimate in terms of our self-knowledge of what we want to create and our frustrations and our feelings. So we feel very fortunate to have that space with each other. And I think our journal can also work on that kind of collaboration. You know, we can go as deep as you want and it can go as futile as you want, right?
I mean,
some people just care about tools, which we all love, and tools are great. I love to buy them. But changing gears a little bit, also, don't you think that it gives you a playground to learn about tools, right? maybe a tool that, or maybe, I don't know, paint, acrylic paint that you're not familiar, or I don't know, maybe you were not a collage person, you start collaging, maybe you're not a stencil person, but it gets you that, play.
Black gesso was super intimidating to me.
Hmm.
I love black canvases. Like I buy black canvases to collage on.
They are so intimidating for me.
I love to collage on them. I haven't painted on them. No. But black gesso is kind of like a gateway into that.
Yeah.
So all you have to do is paint one page. This is like the deepest, darkest black of your soul. No, just kidding. But then you can find the brightest, most intense pigmented.
And it pops. Yeah.
And it practically looks like it's floating. And it brings me back to this trip to a museum where this wild artist person, and I wish I could remember their name, but we're talking like 35 years ago, and that's gone. Sorry. But his art was in pollen. He literally collected pollen and then put it on the floor, and something about the quality of the pollen made it look like it was levitating up off of the floor.
Oh, wow.
Using super bright pigments on black gesso can do the same thing. And it's taken me 35 years to get up the nerve to like find that out. It's pretty amazing.
Well, one thing about the masters is that I have a book from Turner, did a lot of works in watercolor. But this art book that is talking about Turner and showing, I love Turner work. He's saying that he practiced a lot in all kinds of things, paper, scribbling, all these kind of things, right?
Right.
So we just see their art as like, oh, this amazing final piece. But they like did so much work, scribbling everywhere, painting everywhere, doing like all kinds of things. Some artists they did even pottery while they're painting, because I think, I don't know, maybe they wanted to have something different because they're stuck,
Right.
like you said about crochet. I try knitting, but my attention is like horrible.
The counting part can't get to you.
Yeah, when we started with that, I was like, no, not really.
Crochet is very meditative if you can get to a quiet place.
But I think when you are in that stage that the person is doing, she can even talk, and she doesn't need to pay attention. And to me, I have to pay extreme attention.
Yeah.
And
they can't even talk to me. And if they do, I look up and I'm like 13, 14, and they're like, oh, sorry, you're counting stitches.
Yeah. So do you ever try to do scrapbook pages that have mixed media as well?
Now I do. Now that I understand mixed media a lot better, I will incorporate. I love Tim Holtz, and I started using his like.
Who doesn't love Tim Holtz?
All his metal stuff, like back before kids, when I could make 2 volumes of scrapbooks about a 5-day vacation. That doesn't happen. But yeah, I was using his stuff and doing the distress this and the paint that, and now it just comes second nature. I mean, my distress oxides are like to the right hand of my desk right here, and they're labeled, and it's just what I do.
I created digital scrapbooking for a long time. I have a previous business teaching people how to do scrapbooking pages artistically, more on their artistry side, not like, regular scrapbooking in Photoshop. And I loved it. I still love it. I think it's amazing. I could do things that I could never do in paper, like putting light and things like that in my pages, right? But there is something. But while I was doing that, and I also designed products for digital scrapbooking. So in order for me to design products, I always painted because I produce my own stuff.
Right.
So I was always involved with my hands.
Yeah.
And
it's the key almost.
Yeah.
It's the part that connects it to your brain in a way that I personally, as much as I love digital creation, and I spend plenty of time in Photoshop Elements and other such things,
Mm-hmm.
I don't feel the same way afterwards as I
Mm-hmm.
do if I've been creating with my hand.
Yes,
And it literally
absolutely.
could be any of the things. It could be
Yeah,
drawing, it could be painting, it could be
I
art.
agree. I
Even
agree.
writing, which was my first love, is not quite the same as art. And
Mm.
I think it's to do with the hands, and I also think it's to do with color.
And also, like scrapbooking, and for people that are listening, you have to know that there are no rules. There are people that scrapbook and just put pictures and a title, and that's it, because it's just the pleasure of playing with the paper and the
Sometimes
tools.
that's
And
me too.
yeah, but if you want to go further and tell deeper stories and record that, there are people like Ali Edwards that do amazing things, not just in related to scrapbooking, but even to talk about ourselves with her One Little World or
Through the lens.
Through the Lens.
In 2018, when I had my personal renaissance, she was a big part of that.
Mm-hmm.
I
Yeah.
I did Week in the Life and December Daily. I participate in most of her projects now because they always teach me something about myself. And
Yes, I agree.
they really make you look around and
Yeah.
be present.
I bought the One Little World for this year. I kind of did the two first things and it's on the back burner, but I don't feel bad because I know it's there. The content is there. And what is amazing about her stuff is that it doesn't matter when I go plug in, it's going to bring amazing results for me. And I'm going to put notes about all the stuff that we are talking about for if you
One
guys,
little word is a
yeah,
game
if you
changer.
guys want to do, and I mean, you don't need to do scrapbooking like I do actually for One Little Word. I just bought, I don't know, a travel notebook. I'm trying to do it smaller. Um, so in terms of recording. And one thing that has been working for me to write my feelings and stickers or things like just a brain dump sometimes, it's the product from Heidi Swap Storylines. I just loved, I don't know why, I was struggling to find something for me to write. And I think it's because I wanted to put my art artistic flair and I
Okay.
was not finding anything. And then I did that last year and it was so good. I even stitched on the pages and
Oh,
because
nice.
it
Forever
is
to
like
get
a
a
travel notebook but bigger, right?
Oh, yeah.
So I put pictures, I put doodles, actually mine started when the pandemic started. So I have all this, I was counting how many days of the pandemic but then there was a point that
You're like, it's just life
it's
now.
never gonna end. um, but that project, and I'm gonna put the link as well for the product so you guys can see how it looks. It's just basically a notebook but a little bigger, and you put all them in a on a that you can put all them together on her little thing. Um, and it do I write every day? Nope. But when I write, I like it because I feel released and I give my flair to it. And
Mm-hmm.
I don't feel that I need to do a lot also. I don't need to like paint. I don't need, I use a lot of stickers actually and markers. And I feel fine if you don't try. You're not going to know if you like something. You're not going to know watercolor if you don't get your class of watercolor, try watercolor and buy watercolor. You don't know if you like acrylics if you don't buy acrylics and try acrylics. You don't know if you like oils, which you should because I love them.
Know
But
how I feel about oils. I don't know. I was listening to something else you said on another podcast, and people think they're so hard, and I'm like, they are so hard.
I'm gonna take care of that. But you know what I mean? Don't you think that sometimes we get like stuck
Barley,
with that stuff?
my art teacher from 2001, she said something that has stuck with me forever, which was, if you want to get to a place where you like your art, you have to make art like art supplies are free. I
Yes.
was like,
Oh, that is
oh,
awesome.
2001, 20 years ago, Barley said this on
Yeah, I
Day
love that.
Dallas.
That is like what Oprah says is a tweetable quote.
Well,
No,
in
but it's true. It's true. I think we hold up. And I see this with oils because I invested recently in really good oils because, if I'm going to do a painting for sale with oils, it has to be oils in good quality.
Mhm.
Some of them are handmade. And sometimes I'm like
Oh,
squeezing just a little bit. And
Italy.
I'm like, you know what? What's the point? with COVID, I learned, and unfortunately, I lost a dear friend for COVID, and it made me think of these things like, what's the point? I save and put just a tiny oil, and then I die tomorrow, and the oil is there. It
Yeah.
makes no sense. We have to be free of that kind of mind because it brings negative thoughts for us, and it keeps us from discovering good things and make ourselves happy, because all of this is to bring joy. What's the point of this? It doesn't have to have one. If you are happy doing it, what could be better? Some
Yeah.
people look for ages for the happiness, for the joy of inside, and they never find it. And if we sit down and we play with this stuff and it gives us joy, how lucky are we?
I,
You
I-
know?
absolutely. I
It's
feel like that is I call it goo, God, the universe, or whatever. If you're led to Barley Vogel or create or a magazine or a podcast that changes it and you find joy, don't turn away because it's
yes.
intimidating. Don't
Yeah.
turn it away because you might make crappy art. Because as far as I can tell, every artist, writer, and any other creator in this world says you got to make a lot of crap before you get to the good stuff.
Well, I did a class with Julie Fenfei-Boza, which I love her.
Oh, I love
And I actually do I do critique club with her membership. So I pay more to have a critique session with her. One thing that she told me once was that you have to make a lot of bad art, ugly art.
It's true. It's
You
called
have to.
practice.
She said it's not about doing the good art, it's actually about doing a lot of ugly stuff. And I love that she tells how it is.
Yeah.
But Elena, so to finish, what would you say to people if they're like, well, I'm listening to this, I have no idea what they're talking. What is art journal? How do you think should they get started? How, what you could say to them to get them started on this journey?
I think that the best way to get started on the art journaling journey is to get either a notebook or a piece of paper, a whole bunch of colors that make you happy, or if only 3 colors make you happy, whatever floats your boat. See what, and think of a thought, just whatever thought you need to get out, and see what happens.
Yeah.
I had to have a theme, but from there, it went everywhere. So if you have to have a theme, pick a theme.
Yeah.
If you have to have a reason,
you can also do prompts, right? There's in our journal is very common. We have prompts.
Prompts were back then, and so now you can find recipes.
Yes.
There's lots of recipes, and by that, if you don't know, I keep forgetting not everyone is as mired in all this as I am. It's like the recipe you and I used.
Yeah.
Create some texture, use some color, find a quote, and find a stencil. And if you can't find a stencil, make a stencil by punching a bunch of holes out of a piece of paper and putting some paint through it and see what happens.
Yeah. And I think also don't be afraid. And
there's no point.
And I said before in other episodes, and I'm going to keep tackling on the same point. Don't buy expensive stuff to begin with.
Not if it's going to keep you from working on it.
Yes, because our journaling is so forgiving and there's no rules.
I didn't use expensive things, and some of the most amazing artworks were created with pencil and paper.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
At the same time, if you're feeling like you need a reason to commit, I'm not saying this works all the time, but sometimes if you invest financially, you'll invest mentally. I also have the experience of having invested financially, and then what I did was commit 2 years of guilt. So don't do that either. No guilt. And just start where you are. Use what you have. I used to hate that, use what you have. And I'm like, but how could I create something like what you did without all the stuff you have? But no, it's true. You start with what you have.
Yeah.
It's less intimidating, and you get more excited about it somehow. I don't know. Things that you've touched.
And And the thing, the bottom line is like what this podcast, the reason why I want to start this podcast is to let people know that art is so healing, no matter what kind of art.
Absolutely.
And you are here today to prove that. I think out there's a lot of like, oh, scrapbooking is just a hobby. And it's okay to be a hobby. It is art. I so believe, and in the course of my podcast, I hope what people gain from it is, this can heal your heart, because I believe that immensely, and your mind. Because, for 12 years, I didn't have to take meds, and I could somewhat balance my anxiety. I didn't even know I had anxiety with art, with scrapbooking, with mini albums, with card making.
Right. Me too.
Right?
That's how I made it as long as I made it.
I'm not saying that we both take meds today, but it can help you so much, because meds is just one point here.
Yeah, it's not
other tools. You need to, right. You need
everything.
You need a relief. You need to talk with someone. You need to make art that relieves you. And that's why there's such a thing of art therapists that get licensed and everything of that. And I have to tell you, if I didn't have to go through so many years, I would maybe do art therapy as well. Because I did behavior therapy, which is a little different. But in behavior therapy, one of the main points of behavior therapy is you should give a reinforcement to change a behavior, right? In applied behavior, in order for you to change a behavior, you have to give a positive reinforcement. Negative reinforcement increases the bad behavior. Positive reinforcement increases the good behavior.
Right.
And in art, or in this process, it can be a positive reinforcement for our brain, because our brain starts to break the pattern of negativity and bad thoughts and bad feelings and crying.
Yes.
I mean, the reason why I have to go through diagnosis and take meds, because it was getting a little worse and I was getting depressed. Before, I didn't have depression.
Right.
But my therapist, like, he so agree with the art stuff. And sometimes when I would come and would text him and stuff, I said, well, did you paint today?
Nice.
Right? So it has a value, right? It has a value.
I've definitely brought some art journaling pages to my therapist to be like, I can't explain this in words. Just look at this.
Me too. Yeah. I did that before when before COVID, when I have a person in a office, when I would go to the office to talk, I did that too. And, and it's okay. I have pages that I have a girl that I draw crying. And it's okay. It helps you to relieve your heart.
Better out than in,
Yeah. And once it's there, it's gone. Right? And what's the nice thing also, like, is that it's so nice when you go back and you see how much you've grown. Right?
Absolutely.
How much you accomplish, how much, even in my art, like sometimes when I see dolls that I like to paint, when I see my first one, I'm like, what the heck? But I'm so proud when I see that, because I'm like, wow, I came a long way. Good for me.
And also having a body of work, there's something incredible about that. To say,
and in the time that I scrapbook, I had many people that said in classes and stuff like, oh, I don't know, I don't think my kids are gonna get this, or I don't know who want this. And I always told my students or my communities that, well, I don't do things counting that my son is gonna get it or he's gonna. I do because I want. And if it goes through the world and later becomes a vintage piece that people are doing collage, that's fine.
Yeah.
But you cannot do things counting that someone's going to get it and save it.
No.
Right?
No.
So
Andy Warhol, he said, while people are arguing whether your art is good or bad, go on and make some more art.
Don't prevent yourself from creating, because like,
he definitely got critiqued.
Who is going to want all these canvases in my house? It doesn't matter.
Yes.
Mount them, roll them, and keep doing more. And,
that's what
Elena, I feel we could talk like 3 episodes about this.
Yes, probably.
I will challenge you. We should come back and we should talk just about tools, which is my favorite topic.
Oh, I have a lot of tools.
Yes, it would be fun to do an episode about that because definitely I want to talk about tools, but it would not be as fun to talk by myself about tools.
Okay,
Um,
absolutely.
so
I have one here.
I am already pressuring you to do that with me right now.
Okay.
But it was so fun. Thank you so much for doing this because I think that it brought such another perspective that we are at the end of the day, we are all artists and we are here creating and putting our emotions out there. So you have Instagram. So how people can find you on Instagram? What is your account? And I'm going to put the link on the show notes.
Elana Wohrstein. That's it.
Yeah. And, I would, if you are not familiar with scrapbooking or, things we talked about, I would check Elana Instagram because you can see a little bit of everything.
Yeah, I do all the things.
Right. And I love that you post your assignments of the classes that you're participating, and that's great. I really loved when I saw your piece about the face and the feet and the whole, I think was.
I love that project.
Yeah, that project was, I didn't have the courage this year, maybe next year. But I would definitely ask people to check that out. And if you go on both of our accounts, if you roll down a little bit on time, you can see the projects that we did for the Art Journal collaboration. I will try to link some of the posts that we did on Instagram on the show notes as well, so people can see that.
February of this year.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I think people can have a better idea of the collaborations that we did. And if you don't know anyone that can do a collaboration with you, just get our prompts and do it by yourself. I think it's a great way to get it started. You have some prompts in front of you, maybe what somebody's, did, our colors or our theme, and just go for it. We also would love to see if you do that. Yes. Elana, thank you so much. It was such a pleasure to have you here today.
Thank you. This was fun. I totally forgot that, I was nervous at the beginning. So
yeah, that's true. I'm glad. Hopefully we can talk soon again.
Yes, definitely.
Thanks for listening. Check episode notes at 2worldart.com/blog. Connect with Jana on Instagram at Jana_2worlds. And make sure to receive our artful insights by signing up at bit.ly/join2worldsart.